I know that you all hate it when we test something for a long time, and I understand that. But it gives us a true sense of how a product will perform. It also allows us to say how something will do when you buy it, not just after the first couple range trips, but long term. We have officially been using the EOTech VUDU 5-25 scope for a year now. We've tested it on several different rifles and shot it out to 1,000 yards. Most importantly, in my opinion, over a year, so any mishaps or issues should have arisen by this point. It has seen several thousand rounds of use over this period to give a sense of how it will perform for you over the long run. And a huge thanks goes out to Optics Planet for sending this scope out for review. Just remember, with the discount code ALArsenal5, you can save the money, get the gear you want, and it helps the channel out a little bit at the same time too. The most amazing thing about the VUDU 5-25 is the size. This thing is easily the smallest 25 power scope I have ever seen. I left the sunshade on mine most of the time we were filming. Now I will say the range I shoot at in the afternoon, you're shooting into the sunset, so it is kind of needed. But I have to admit, I also left it on because without it, the scope would look kind of small on some of the rifles we had it on. Now, it would be ideal on some really small, short platforms, like the Desert Tech SRS-A2, the Q-Fix, or any other time space is at a premium. But again, if you ever feel like it's too short, you can always just attach the sunshade. I'd also always rather have a smaller, lighter scope than one that is big, bulky, and heavy. Plus, the extremely short size will easily allow you to put any night vision or anything else that you might want to add in front of your scope. The EOTech VUDU 5-25 is only 11.2 inches long. To give you an idea, my Leupold Mark V with the same magnification range measures in at 15.67 inches long. And the VUDU is just barely longer than my Trijicon AccuPower 1-8. Basically, you're getting a 25 power first focal plane scope that is essentially the same length as a low power variable optic, something in the 1 to 6 power range. If size is at a premium for you, there is nothing more compact right now than the EOTech VUDU 5-25. The most important thing about the size is you really aren't making any sacrifices for it. EOTech and VUDU have managed to squeeze all the features and quality you would want in a high-end scope like this into a package this small. Like I said, this scope is a 5-25 power. It has a 50mm objective lens and 34mm tube. I do want to note that I heard from several people that some one-piece mounts won't work because the scope is so short and that they don't allow for it. I'm using the ScholarWorks Leap mount, which is always my first choice in mounts, and it works perfectly, almost like it was made for it. If you want to know some more about the ScholarWorks Leap mount, we did a video on it a while back. Another thing that I really like about this scope is you can zero the optic without tools. Just get the gun and scope lined up like you want and unscrew the top cap. Lift the turret up and place it back on 0. I also like that the 0 lines up perfectly with the hash mark. Sometimes systems like this can be just slightly off and somewhat frustrating. Screw the top cap back on and you're ready to go. There's an indicator on the top of the turret to let you know where you're at in the turret. You can also set a 0 stop if you want to, but that does require an Allen wrench and aligning these stop pins. I'm going to be totally honest, I used this scope very successfully for a year on several different rifles without doing this. Also, I didn't even really know about it until I was glancing through the manual before the video, but it's cool that it is available, and if you want a definitive 0 stop, it is there. The Windage turret is capped, and I personally like that. I never dial for wind because it just changes constantly, so I basically zero it and forget it. VUDU also made this toolless as well. To disengage the turret, you can use a coin or the side of a bullet to unscrew it, lift the turret off, move it to the desired position, and put it back together. I really like that you can take this scope out to the range and zero it without any tools. No need to hunt down some tiny ass Allen wrenches and hope that you have the right one. It's simple, it works, and it zeroes without any tools. Major thumbs up in my book. On the left side of the scope, you'll have the parallax adjustment. For those unfamiliar, this is basically focus for the scope at different ranges, and approximate yardages are given. This one goes from 45 yards to 1,000 and then infinity, which means that you'll have a very wide adjustment spectrum. Next to that, you'll have the buttons for illumination. The top button powers on and off the illumination. The forward-facing button lowers the brightness, and the button closest to the shooter makes the illumination brighter. Any button will actually turn the illumination on, but only the power button will turn it off. The end cap unscrews, and that's where the standard 2032 battery goes. The illumination will automatically shut off after about 2 hours to preserve the battery. The reticle is beautifully lit and really well done. I will say that the illumination is not overwhelmingly bright. It's definitely not daylight bright on any setting, and definitely something that's more of a twilight or dusk only thing. Now that's not a huge deal to me, but if that's a deal breaker for you, that is just the way it is. Moving back, you'll have the power magnification adjustment, and I love that the VUDU 5-25 comes with a quick throw lever in the box. This lets you quickly and smoothly adjust your magnification. It also stops just shy of where the bolt will be, so they should never be getting in the way of one another. Behind that is the eye focus, letting you dial in the crispness of the reticle for your eye. Let me just say that all the adjustments on the scope are very good and what you would expect from a high-end scope of this caliber. To adjust the elevation turret, you lift up on the dial, make your adjustment, and push back down to lock into place. The turrets both have audible and tactile adjustments, and the parallax and the magnification adjust smoothly but affirmatively with no slop. The scope is also pretty light, weighing in at 29.5 ounces. There are several reticles available. I got the H59, which happens to be my favorite reticle. This being a first focal plane scope, which means the measurements on the reticle are correct throughout all the levels of magnification. The reticle worked beautifully without dialing. We ran 1,000 rounds through the SCAR 20 with this scope on it, and SCARs are known for being extremely tough on optics. The VUDU 5-25 held up great with absolutely no issues, even with all that time on top of a SCAR. The glass is really nice and clear, but maybe not quite as clear as, for instance, a Leupold Mark V or a Collis, but still really, really good. If you're going to rank it like on a 1 to 10 system, this would be like a 9 or a 9.5 out of 10, and the best glass I've seen on any Japanese-made scope. Don't really think you're making any sacrifice in the glass clarity, but if you're used to one of those really high-end scopes, it's just shy of that. It should also be noted that the VUDU is a little cheaper than a Leupold Mark V HD and a lot cheaper than a Collis. I see so many great uses and reasons to get this scope. If you have something like an AR-10 and don't want a massive scope on top of it, this fits that bill. Actually, anytime you want a full featured scope, this is it, and you really don't make any sacrifices for that size. Also, if you're setting up a rifle and maybe aren't sure about the magnification, this lets you go from 5 to 25 without taking up the space a normal 25 power scope would. I really hope that this becomes a trend and we see other manufacturers try to make full powered, full featured scopes in small packages like this VUDU. In case you can't tell, I'm a huge fan of the scope and I can see it getting a permanent home on my Desert Tech SRS-A2. I think it will be perfect for that rifle and just add to the compact package. This is an amazing scope, and a huge thanks goes out to Optics Planet for sending it out for review. Remember, if you use the code ALARSENAL5, you get to save a little bit of money and it helps the channel out at the same time. Also, that code is good for just about anything in the store. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you're not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. As always, we are working on some really big reviews that you won't want to miss. You want to know what those reviews are way before they hit the YouTube channel? Check us out on Instagram and Facebook. There you can see what's being reviewed in real time. If you want to help support Alabama Arsenal, the best possible way to do that is Patreon. These videos can be surprisingly expensive to make, and every little bit helps and is greatly appreciated. There is also Alabama Arsenal gear available right below the video if you want to go out and represent. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching.